Hello, hello. Welcome back to the show. I'm Nicole Holland and super excited to have with me again, Mark Asquith. Let me give you a little bit of information about Mark before we jump right into this resource sharing episode. In 2005, Mark Asquith decided that he no longer wanted to work the 9 to 5 for people with whom he had little in common, so he quit. Since then, he's gone from freelancer to multiple business owner and thought leader, having worked for the UK's Ministry of Defence, the NHS, and some of the UK's biggest corporations and financial institutions. Shortly after building his first successful business, Mark found himself facing a destructive burnout. It was through that experience that Mark opened his eyes to the realization that with a few simple changes, concise guidance, and transparent straight talk, it's possible for early stage entrepreneurs and founders to avoid the ever so common burnout stage completely, and to instead create a work-life harmony that ensures their own personal version of excellence. Recognized by his mantra, the more you expect from yourself, the more you will excel. Mark is an expert at so many things, and it's an absolute honor to have him here with us again on the Nicole Holland Show. Thank you again, Mark, for being here.
Hello again. Thanks for having me again.
So, today we're going to be talking about podcast websites, which I'm really excited about because I personally recently switched over to you guys for this new show, for the launch, and I'm just so impressed. I've been impressed for a very long time, but now I get to be a recipient of your amazing team's work and your passion for what you do. And so why don't, before we get really into the nitty gritty, can you just give my listeners an understanding of what is podcast websites and who it's for?
Yeah, definitely. So podcast websites, it started life as kind of me solving a problem that I was having myself. So like when I started my own podcast back in 2014, I launched on International Podcast Day, actually 2014. And when I launched that, I was lucky enough to own a design and digital agency, which Kieran, who was my co-founder here at Podcast Websites, he was a developer for. And we built sort of my site out on WordPress. I'd used WordPress for years, being an agency owner, and built hundreds and hundreds of sites on it from myself, being a developer back in the day, to then working with clients on it, and so on and so forth. And it was just, like, even for me, it was a little bit confusing. I had to figure out so many different moving parts, and that's when Podcast Websites was born. We put together a platform that it's kind of part agency, even though we've only just launched some new features over the last couple of weeks to enable that more agency style feel. But primarily, it started life as just this all-in-one platform for podcasters to build their branded audio hub, and so it includes everything that you need: design tools, podcast media hosting, download stats, 24/7 support, backups, security, literally everything you need. Web hosting, it really is kind of that all-in-one package for building your own complete branded platform, which is what we intended. And it's gone through a number of iterations. We work hard on making it as easy for people as possible. I think you joined us, Nicole, when we just launched our personalized launch plan. So you've been asked to, ask a couple of questions and answer the questions and tell us where you are in your journey. And then you'll be guided to a specific launch plan for you. So little things like that we're always adding, but very recently we've upgraded it and changed it as well. So we've got a lot of new things going on right now. So it's just really, it's for not only beginners, which we thought it was going to be for beginners. We thought, well, we're everything in one place, we'll take the pressure off. But actually what we're finding is that massively established podcasters are moving to us because they've done 2 or 3 years of managing all the different facets of the platform, and they're thinking, actually, why bother when we can just do it all in one place? So it's been fun. It's an interesting platform. It's good. I'm glad we can do it because it helps. We get so much feedback where people wouldn't have launched a successful brand, not just a podcast, but a brand online, had it not been for what we do. So it's always nice to hear when you're actually helping someone,
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, that's me. So I've already had the podcast for a couple of years when I'd come over, and I needed to do a new website, and I had a million different moving parts going on that I was trying to manage. And I thought, screw this. Plus going to a 5-day-a-week show, I was like, it just makes more sense. And even from a financial standpoint, sometimes people might go, oh my, like, you're more expensive than if I just get a GoDaddy or a HostGator account and, do this. But I think when people are considering, at least for me, it's not about the financial aspect as much as it is the quality aspect and like making my life easier. But with that, even still, it's, for me, far less expensive to be with you guys than it is to have my media hosting, my website hosting, and having to manage that as well. Plus your website or your theme, I guess it is, when we come to you, it's already optimized for podcasters. And I have to say the launch plan really impressed me, because even though I've already launched a show, I've launched a couple of shows, I've launched shows for clients. I really love how all of the tutorials are broken down, and obviously you guys have put a ton of work into this, and I love that you're upgrading and moving forward. So I think podcast websites, if you're listening to this right now or you're watching this video, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, I think podcast websites is really for anybody from just a hobbyist who wants to get started but wants to learn about how to monetize, because you have so much education in the academy piece, to somebody who, like you said, is a seasoned podcaster, to somebody who's just starting out, to a big business, a big company who wants to start a podcast for their company and for their brand awareness. Is that right?
It is, yeah. And we've just redone the entire system, our suite of products. So this is the interesting kind of challenge that we found ourselves in. Like, there's so many podcast tech companies out there at the minute, so many people that are doing so many great, interesting things in podcasting that it's kind of interesting to look back. So when we first started podcast websites, it was podcast websites was my easy way into podcasting, because we already had an agency that built and created amazing web software and websites. And I was a podcaster, and JLD's our co-founder with myself and Kieran. We're in podcasting. We know about it. We do podcasting. It's what we do, and it's podcast websites was kind of not the low hanging fruit, but it was the easiest thing that we could get together quickly, which the market needed. It was sort of that Venn diagram of what's the market need, what's the easiest thing we can do with our skill set, and what's the quickest thing. And podcast websites was right in the center of doing that. But the thing is that it's not, that was never the intent to be just podcast websites. The stuff that we've launched over the last few weeks, and even as you launch this show, over the next coming days that we've put out there, things like our academy. We've got the Podcast Success Academy, which started life as just our internal training. It just started life as internal training for our members. And we spun that out into podcastsuccessacademy.com, because what I realized was that, I'm this weirdly fortunate person that I just happen to have been in digital in other realms. I've done training, I used to run an SEO agency, then we morphed that into the brand and digital agency. So we've kind of been doing a lot of digital stuff forever, and podcasters need to know that stuff, regardless if they think they don't. Like, no one tells you as a podcaster you need to know basic SEO. No one tells you when it comes to podcasting that you need to know about Facebook ads or email marketing or content strategy, or just little hacks that you can take to just boost your listenership. So we created that academy, which has got the 3 tiers. The free tier, anyone can join it. We've got the paid for tier, which has got things like the weekly coaching that we do. So you can come and join. You literally can come and get coached for free by me and Jess Kupferman every single week. And then as a podcast websites member, you get premium access. So you've got your mastermind, which we do every month. It's a proper in-depth, you're part of a mastermind group. And all sorts of things that are going alongside that. So the academy is fun. And then we've got a couple of bits that we've launched over the last few weeks as well, sort of towards the back end of 2018, which are interesting. So the point that I'm getting at with that is that it's a funny thing, because for me, all I want to do is create successful podcasters, and podcast websites is one part of that. And then there's the academy, and then the other bits that we've got that we've just put out this week. And there's just so much to be done. Like in podcasting, for you getting into podcasting now, if it's your first time as a podcaster, you are pretty much still getting in on the ground floor. It might have been around 10, 15 years almost, but when it comes to mass market and the industry itself, it's still really young. It's not even grown up yet. So it's a really good time to be in it. It's fun. There's a lot going on.
Can we actually dig into that a little bit? And then if it's possible, I'd love to do a demo. Can you show us inside of podcast websites?
I can indeed.
Awesome. So before we do, though, I find it really interesting what you've just said, and it's true, but people don't realize it. I think because we're hitting that stride in mainstream society, and they know what a podcast is. They listen to podcasts. Whereas even just a couple years ago, people are like, oh, what? It's getting more recognized across the board with people, at least in the US and in Canada. And I don't know how it is in the UK. I imagine it's probably the same. But can you talk about that just a little bit? Because I think a lot of people, I've been into masterminds recently, and people are like, well, I've been wanting to start a podcast because I should start a podcast, but there's so many podcasts already there, so I don't know. Like, what do you say about that? And with all of the big media, big media getting involved in podcasts, and also like big gurus, big names, sometimes people think, oh, well, is it even worth it because it's already saturated?
Yeah, that's a good question. And if you're a web designer, why would you set up, because there are 1,000 web design companies, why would you set up an accountancy? There's 1,000 other accountants, solicitors, lawyers. Why would you set a builders up? Why would you set a software company up? Why would you do anything? There's 1,000 hairdressers. Why do I need another one? It's just not how the world works. People come to you because they like you, and things are always going to be transient. People move, people shift. But the thing you've got to really consider is that podcasting is kind of one of the only mediums, a little bit like vlogging. If you go on YouTube and you look at these YouTube stars, people tune into you. Like, you could tell me the color blue is the color blue in your own unique way, and I would be drawn to you telling me that versus Kieran telling me that, because I believe I like your personality more than Kieran. Sorry, dude, I know he's listening, but he's a lovely man. But that's an example of me tuning in because I like you, and it's one of those things where, how many other people are interviewing business people? Like 1,000,001. But why do your listeners listen to you? It's because they like you, and you're their authority, and you've got a different take. No one else has got your that unique fingerprint mix of experience and beliefs and ethics and values and, foresight and future thinking. No one else has got that particular mix that you've got. So the fact that someone else is doing it in your niche just shows that there's an appetite for it. And look, at the end of the day as well, if you look at the Edison stats, the most recent Edison stats, people spend 2.5 hours a day, I think, listening to spoken word audio. So that's let's call that 5 days a week, assuming it's all commuters, 2.5 hours a day. What's the average podcast? 30, 50, 60 minutes. There's a lot of time there. You can squeeze into someone's agenda, and especially if you format your show quite nicely. You could do seasons, or you could do what I do in my 7-minute mentor, which no one's got an excuse to not be able to find 7 extra minutes to listen to a podcast. So you've kind of, you've got to let the medium work for you. And you mentioned earlier on about, these big players getting into the space, and I think that's great because awareness is wonderful. If Serial takes off on season 1 like it did a few years ago, suddenly my mum knows about podcasts, and then boom, Barack Obama's been interviewed by Mark Maron, and my mum's like, wait a second, what's this thing? You're able to then explain to her mum, it's like Netflix for radio, kind of, and suddenly she gets it, and then she starts exploring other things, and then she comes across you and what you're talking about, and she likes it. So it's a really good thing. But the real opportunity, in my opinion, Nicole, is that actually I think it's less now for people like us that are kind of doing it in the business niche. I think we talked about this on the last one. You've got to be entertaining, but more importantly, I believe it's not about growing giant numbers. It's not about being a podcaster. It's about being an audio influencer, and that's what we teach in the academy. And it's the phrase that I use all the time: become an audio influencer. And the notion is that if I said to you, 200 people will turn up every single week to listen to what you're saying in a room like this one, you'd be over the moon. 200 people showing up, giving their time up. But when you say you've got 200 downloads on your podcast, people get a bit annoyed. They're like, why have I only got 200? But those 200 people, they're being influenced by you. You can ask them to do things. You're their leader. You're the person that they listen to. So I think if there are other people doing it in your niche, you've got to lean into it. You've got to say, well, I'm talking about this thing, and I'm talking about it my way. And there's no reason for me not to do that just because Nicole's talking about it. If anything, we should lean on each other, and we should have discussions, and we should interview each other, and we should promote each other's shows, and we should allow other listeners to cross-pollinate a little bit. So it's a very weird space for that. And I've always found, just to kind of cap that monologue off, I've just kind of always found, and I remember this being my first impression of podcasting, is that everyone seems really supportive. Or they used to do it. I mean, it's a little bit more competitive now. But everyone, like in 2015, 2016, they were so supportive. Other podcasters are so supportive. Like, I would never not recommend your show just because a listener might listen to you and not me. It's ridiculous. Like, we just don't do that. You know what it's like. So that, yeah, if someone's doing it in your niche, then you've got to give it a go. Because if not, and here's the kind of parting shot, if you don't do it, they'll be the only thought leader, and suddenly you've missed a trick, you know?
For sure. And I love, so in your monologue, you just hit on the two things I wanted to follow up with. So that's fantastic. And I'll just parrot that about podcasters as a whole, as a community, are generally quite supportive. And that was really interesting to me. The first time I went to Podcast Movement in 2016, I guess, in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, oh my gosh, like, well, it was great because I got to actually meet in person 13 people I'd already interviewed. So that was super exciting. And it's like you get to know people, whereas before I used to think you don't know anybody on the internet, right? Like you can't really develop relationships. But as a podcast host, you really can, because you have these intimate conversations with people. And if there's synergy, you keep in touch and they support your show and you support their show. And like you said, right? And you keep in communication, and then you see these people in real life. And like I now in 2019, it's like my life is so full with amazing people that I never would have met if not for podcasting, and including you. And so your platform podcast website, it really does such an amazing service connecting the person who's the expert, or the company CEO, or the team at the company, or even if it's just for, even though like we're in the business space and in the space of, at least I am in the space of working with disruptors, change makers, thought leaders to help them utilize podcasts and podcast guesting to make money. There's lots of people who are just doing it as an outlet and sharing their feelings and their thoughts and building community in that way. And it's wonderful too. So with that, can we dive into podcast websites? Do you want to kind of do a bit of a demo and walk us through the different, I guess the different kind of starting points? So we can do it however you want, but I'm just thinking the free tier of the Academy might be worth giving a look, so that my audience can also realize it's not just, it's not just this product that we're talking about, but it's this entire suite that you mentioned. So even if people are thinking, I'd like to have a podcast, but maybe I'm not ready to jump in yet, there's so much value even in the free tier of the Academy. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And the interesting thing about this is that we've just launched our media-only hosting platform. So with podcast websites, you get your media hosting rolled into it. But literally over the last couple of weeks, we've just launched captivateFM, which is literally the world's only growth-oriented podcast host. So some of the tech, some of the intelligence that we've built, some of the machine learning, the artificial intelligence that we've built into that platform, it's the only media hosting platform that allows you to market your podcast, that allows you to create a content calendar in there, that allows you to increase your reach. It allows you to connect your Twitter profiles, your Facebook, your Instagram, and actually look at, the spikes that you get in your downloads. Why did they occur? What effect did they have on my reach? What's going on with that? So that's captivate.fm. So this suite that we're rolling out actually is now a three-pronged approach. We've got the captivate.fm platform, which is, like I said, that's a January 2019 launch. So it's exciting. There's the Academy. There is this suite of things, and you can start on the free tier of the Academy, and you can move up to host with us. Then you can move up to podcast websites. We've got this path. We've got you covered. So you can start as low as you want. You can start on the free tier of the Academy. So I will show you, if you like, the Academy. Just give me one sec. I will share my screen when I can actually make the thing work. There we go. You should be seeing that now. Good.
Yes, looks good.
Okay, so the Academy is nice and easy. It's the goal is to help you become a successful podcaster. So we do things like our workshops, where we've got just a pile of workshops from people across the world teaching you the skills that no one told you needed. So there's Tom Tate there, there's me, There's our head of podcast relations, James Marriott. We've got Callie Wilkinson talking about brand, how to create remarkable content with Andrew and Pete. We've got Ramona in there. We've got JLD in there. We've got Ducker in there. We've got all sorts of different workshops in there. There's just, there's tons of them. We've got our tutorials, which you'll be familiar with this, Nicole, having gone through some of the tutorials that we've done, things like our launch plans. We've got these Audacity editing tutorials. So if you want to learn how to edit on Audacity, we've got tons of tutorials in there. We've got our resources. And again, this is free stuff. You can join this for free and it's all there. So we've got some of these in there. There's just piles of resources, downloads, checklists, case studies. There's templates in there. There's email templates for sponsors and tons of different things. We've then got the quick win exercises. So if you've got 30 minutes, you can spend some time doing one of these quick win exercises, how to write a new subscriber welcome email, how to train yourself to become a grade A interviewer, adding value with free resources. There's these 30-minute quick wins that you can undertake. We've got our courses, we just put a new one in there actually, which is the Sneaky Secrets to Growing Your Podcast Audience course. And you'll have been through this one as well, Nicole. You'll have been through some of these podcast websites launch plans, which are kind of cool. The masterminds, these are entirely for podcast websites members only. They are only for podcast websites members. So if you're a free tier member, even if you're a growth tier member on one of the paid tiers of the Academy, you won't get access to these. These are premium to only podcast websites members. But these are good. These run every single month. It's a fully formed mastermind, the usual mastermind structures. And then we've got our community, which I'll not click into because it gets super busy in there. But we've just got the forum. So just a live forum that you can get involved with. We've got the office hours there where our team are there answering live questions. We've got things like our free coaching in there that we do every single week. So there's a lot to the Academy. It's a really, really great bit of kit. And like I said, I think maybe 75% of this is on the free tier. So you can get started today, podcastsuccessacademy.com. It just is free. Just go and get involved.
Awesome. Thank you.
You are
and
welcome.
Then, did you want to, I don't know if you can you show us sort of the back end of a demo site so that we can see, because I know everything's in the Academy and it's great, but just a quick view just so we can see, because what I really love is, and I was a bit confused at first because I wanted to jump right in because I already have done tons of WordPress sites. I was like, I'll figure this out. And then I was like, I can't figure those out. But you have so much information. So I went through the tutorial step by step, and it's so nice to be literally walked through to customize the theme. So it looks like me. It's got my colors, it's got my style, and that was super simple to do. And so anybody who goes to the website for NicoleHollandshow.com, or you'll see my site, and that is from podcast websites. So I don't know if there's anything you can show us.
I will. I'll show you two things. So this is the site that you'll receive when you sign up to podcast websites. This is the installed site. So we've designed this to be absolutely fantastic looking anyway. We've built everything in that you need. We've got your Start Here page built in where you can guide people with some curated content to where should I start with this podcast? Now I come to the NicoleHollandshow.com. What should I do first? We've got the episodes, so you've got in all of your built-in podcast players. You've got your call to action buttons in there. You've got built-in blog platforms because it is based on WordPress, so it's a fully featured site. You've got your About the Show page, which we've designed to be really high quality, and it's really easy to edit. You just fire up the editor and you can drag and drop around these things. We've got the sponsor kit page. So from day one, we equip you with a nice sponsor kit. So you can just tweak this to your own liking, put some images in, put your logos in. It looks really good. And then we've got the quick get in touch page as well, which is just a nice, dead straightforward contact page. And, as many forms as you want built into it. You can build as many landing pages. The real power is in the back end. It's in the dashboard. So this is a live site, actually. It's one of the sites that we use here. And it's run by James, our head of podcast relations. So this is a live podcast website called The Wednesday Week. And it's great. You've got all your podcast download statistics built into the dashboard. You've got your iTunes reviews built in that you can filter by country. You've got some mini dashboards that you can get to, like your podcasting dashboard. Everything, all your support, literally everything is built into this. You've got your design center, you've got quick access to the academy, you've got our inbuilt video tutorials. So like, your, how do I quickly do this on my website? That's in the video tutorial library, which is wonderful. And like I said, it's just super simple. You come into the podcasting dashboard and everything's there. Everything that you need is nice and simple and just easily accessed. You've got some really in-depth statistics, the same stats that you get anywhere, really in-depth stats. It's really good, actually. What we do is we actually give you your raw download requests as well, which no one else really does. So what we do is we are an IAB compliant media host. So what that means is that we stick to the IAB guidelines, like everyone should, on how to define a unique download. But what we do is we also give you your raw download requests, so you can see actually what is making my downloads not unique. Why am I not able to report on these downloads? Because actually there was some downloads that didn't download 1 minute of audio, so that doesn't count in the IAB guidelines. That doesn't count as an actual download. But here's the amount of those that were filtered out. So you can start to really get some insights into your audience, into your behavior.
It's really fantastic. And I've not seen this not that I've been everywhere, but I've not seen this before from others. So I love how all of that is broken down, because a lot of people don't understand downloads and they don't understand the stats. So you've got all of that there. Another question I get a lot is when people are just starting out, they're like, how do I get my show on iTunes? How do I get my show on Spotify or on Stitch or whatever? So is that something you can touch on?
Yeah, definitely. So that's nice and easy. So all of your, any podcast media host, including us, will generate an RSS feed for you. So all you do is we've got tutorials on this. We've got buttons in here to enable like quick access to various things. But all you do is you give them the RSS feed that your media host, so in this case, we would give you, and you just submit that into their directories and they come back and say, yes, you're in. So we've got tutorials on that. It's nice and simple to get in there. And you're just basically changing your show settings to suit you. So in this instance, the Wednesday week, you would put your name of the show in, you'd put your description and, the author and everything that goes alongside that. And you would quite literally just submit that to Apple and put it in Apple Podcasts that way. And the same with Spotify, the same with Stitcher and anyone else that you can think of, really. It's all pretty straightforward. And we've got tutorials for each of those outlets as well, so each of those channels. And once you've done that once, everything is automatically sent to them. So you don't have to do that every time you submit a podcast to your media host. So if you publish on podcast websites today's episode, that will go to Apple. It's already going to go there. It's going to go to Stitcher. It's going to go to Spotify. So you just submit that feed once, and once you've done that, everything is done.
Awesome. And we're recording far before this. These new things are launching. So you mentioned that you're going to have Twitter and different abilities. So is it where people can put their information into the dashboard and it goes out automatically, or how does that work?
It will do that, but that's not the point of it. So the problem is, so if you look at captivate.fm, when this episode drops, go to captivate.fm. That's our standalone media hosting. So our podcast website's platform is this platform over here. We've just launched as well something called Podcast Design Studio. So what that means is, and I'll explain all this in context, podcast websites is the all-in-one platform where you can bring everything together. We've got a media hosting component of that, which we've just spun out into its own media host. So you can join captivate.fm for $14 a month. You don't have to have the full podcast website's experience. If you just want to host your media with us like you would anyone else, you can use captivate.fm. Podcast websites is very much software and a service. So we'll provide all your media hosting, your download stats, we'll provide your design tools, we'll provide the 24/7 support. We've got Podcast Design Studio, so you can commission cover art, you can commission a custom website design, you can commission social media artwork, you can commission ebooks and covers for your ebooks. You can commission all that stuff.
So done for you graphic design, essentially.
All done for you, yeah. And it's all done within your podcast website's dashboard. That launched on the 3rd of December to our members. And we're going to be putting that out to the public as well. So anyone that's not a member will be able to do that. But Captivate.fm is a little different. Like I said before, it's the world's only growth-oriented media host. So what that means is, sure, yeah, you can blast it out to Twitter. That's easy. You can upload your episode and off it goes to Twitter and YouTube and Apple Podcasts and anywhere else, the usual stuff like everyone else does. But what we do differently is, like I said, we are the growth-oriented media host. So if you think about what you want to do as a podcaster, what's the number one thing you want to do? It's to increase your reach, not just your downloads, but it's to increase your overall brand influence. And to do that, you can't just be measuring your downloads. You've got to measure other stuff. And you've got to understand why certain things happen. So what captivate.fm does that no one else does in podcasting is it allows you to connect your Twitter feed. It allows you to connect your Facebook profiles, your pages, and so on, your Instagram profiles. It allows you to bring everything together into one dashboard. So you can see, okay, today's podcasts were this, and I also had a spike in my Twitter followers. I should probably talk about that thing more. And then the machine learning will also decide, okay, what's working best for you? Is it best to post at 2 p.m. because you get more Twitter engagement for your podcast at 2 p.m. or is it best to post at 4 p.m. on a Thursday? What's the overall sentiment of your show? Has this episode been received positively or negatively based on the language used in your tweets and in the responses? And then also things like, okay, look, 500 downloads today were filtered out because less than 1 minute of audio was downloaded. So why don't you make your file size smaller by using these compression rates and using this type of export? But what it also does is it allows you to understand the peaks. So, you know, when you get a download spike and you've got no idea why, the system, because it's got all of your data, analyzes that and said, we think it's because you were on Entrepreneur on Fire podcast a week ago. We think that has just hit. So what you're going to be able to do as well is you can input your marketing calendar. So you can build a full content marketing calendar within your hosting dashboard. And as long as you tell the system what you're doing and you're planning your content inside there, it will analyze, okay, the last 4 times you've done this thing on a Tuesday, on a Thursday, you've got a spike. Go and try doing that again. So it becomes really intelligent the more information that you give it. So that's captivate.fm.
That's wild.
It's fun, isn't it? It is fun.
But that's not going to be part of the podcast websites.
Yes, it is.
So
what that means is
that too.
You, as a podcast websites member, you'll get your media hosting for free on captivate.fm for the life of your membership. You'll get all of those features as a podcast websites member, and anyone can become a captivate.fm member. You can host your podcast with us without having podcast websites. But if you are a member, you'll get the media hosting powered by Captivate within your dashboard. And then there's the academy in there. And so if you join podcast websites on the $97 a month option, you get everything. All this, literally everything. You get $14 a month hosting thrown in. You get $37 a month premium academy access thrown in. So when you start to stack it up, it's kind of a no-brainer. And that's,
totally a no-brainer.
Exactly. Totally a no-brainer.
So that's why I'm excited to share this with my audience. And I didn't even know about all this other stuff because, again, we're recording way back in 2018, that year that just passed. And it's very weird that I just said that year that just passed and we're in it right now.
That is so odd. And it passed with a flourish as well. No one noticed that it had passed until it had gone.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm super excited to hear about all this stuff. And did you want to talk about the other thing that I believe you would have launched by the time this airs? Yes.
We can do, but you do realize.
I've been waiting to hear. It's a secret. I know, because I've been waiting to know about this since July and was just a slightly not offended. You on that, that's why I said it. But no, you were at Podcast Movement and you guys were like super secretive about it, and so just building that buzz and that excitement, and so I want to hear.
All right, that sounds good. Well, you sworn to absolute secrecy. You're one of like 5 people in the world as we're recording this that know about it, but it's going out in around 31st of December, so we're all right. But you are sworn to secrecy, otherwise I will find you.
Well, I will not say a word. And actually, you asked me earlier when this is going out. I think it's going out on my birthday. So
well, happy birthday.
Thanks. I wanted to do a week of some of my favorite things. So here we are.
That's smooth. I like that. That's smooth. You are smooth. Okay, so yeah, productivity is it's a tech product. So it's a product that we're not selling to podcasters. We're not selling it. You can just have it. And what it is right now is it's a platform that other companies can integrate with. So other media hosts, other listening apps like Apple's podcast or Spotify or Overcast or your Google podcast, whatever you listen on. And it's an interaction technology. So what it allows you to do is link up any kind of interaction you want on a contextual level. So let's say that you and I are talking now, and at minute 1, you say, right, guys, I want you to go and sign up for the Podcast Success Academy. Now, what you'll be able to do is you'll then be able to announce as a host, if you're listening on a productivity-enabled player, hit your 1 action button now. So you'll have a big action button right in the center of your screen. And the second you hit it, either on a watch or on a phone or on a car screen or on an iPad or a computer, there's not going to be a screen popped up that says, now put your information in. You will get an email saying you have been signed up to the Podcast Success Academy. Here's your login. If you then say, right, guys, order a t-shirt, choose which size you want by hitting the right size on your screen now, and that t-shirt will be mailed to you. We'll take the payment, everything. Or go and sign up for an email list. Go and get my free course. Hit your action button now. And you can contextualize the link. So if you imagine at minute 1, you tag a little area, minute 1 to minute 2. If anyone presses that button within that time frame, they will be automatically added to your email list. They're not going to get a pop-up. They're not going to get a screen. They're not going to get a form. They're not going to get anything. It will just be a press on a button. And that's what productivity is.
That's exciting. And conceptual. So I'm excited to see it when it does roll out. And to everybody listening, it's already rolled out, so you guys can see it right now. And where would they go to see that? You can go to productivity.com. We'll be in around beta stage at this stage when this goes out. So go and sign up, go and request an invitation. We'll send you an invitation and you can get on the list. The reason that we kept it under wraps and why we did what we did at Podcast Movement is because we had to go through a lot of patent work. So we had to set a lot of the technological patents up. We also had some trademark wrangles going on, which is still going on. But we had to deal with those, which is why we did it like we did it. Had we announced it without the ability to say this is patent pending, it might have just been a little bit risky, that's all. For sure. And I'm so amazed. Like what you're saying is just like... So most people say that actually. If we most of the 4 other people. Seriously, there's like when I told Jess Kupferman, our head of marketing, about it, she was like, "Oh my God, this is insane." That's Jess's voice. Yes, she was. It is. Yeah, it is. It's exactly it. But she was the same, and obviously John knows about it, and Kieran and I and the team internally. But by the time this goes out, we'll be putting a post out. The blog post went out, if I remember the right date, it was around the 26th of November when we announced to the world what this thing would be. So you can go and check the blog post out at productivity.com. Awesome. This has been great. Are there any questions that I've not asked you about podcast websites or anything else that that you wish I had, or that you get frequently and you'd like to just let my listeners know about? It's not necessarily a question. It's more of a, and again, not a mistake. I was just about to say mistake, but it's not. It's more of a consideration if you're starting or you're building a podcast. The world's changing when it comes to podcasting. It's not how it used to be. It is getting busier. You and I just mentioned that a while ago, but it is getting busier. And I think in the future, and you're going to start to see a lot of content from myself and Jess on this, in the future, the podcasting world will belong to the middle ground. And what I mean by that is it's not going to belong to those that don't get any downloads at all, the 50, 60 downloads. But it's also not going to belong to the radio. It's not going to belong to the people that get 50,000, 500,000, 1 million downloads an episode. It's not going to belong to them. It's going to belong to the people right smack in the middle, like you and me, that do all right and that have got an audience that like them and that trust them. They're not huge audiences, and that's why we've built everything that we've built. Podcast websites was the first part of that. The Academy was the second part. Productivity and Captivate are the most recent parts. If you notice, everything, all of those things have got very unique angles to them, which are all about you growing what you do. It's not about going to sponsors and begging for $30 per 1,000 listens or down. It's not about that. It's about doing it how you want to do it. And that's what I would say if you're coming into podcasting, or if you're in podcasting right now, is that it is changing, and all you've got to focus on is building just your little piece of that world. Don't focus on
trying to topple someone else or try and match someone else's downloads. Try and just focus on building your people. And even if you've got 200 people, 200 downloads, there's so much that you can do with that. And so don't be disheartened with that.
Awesome. And I forgot to mention, as you were sharing your screen, my listeners, I think, know by now that for all of our resource share episodes, we have the video on the website, NicoleHollandShow.com. Go on over there. And I'm going to have links to all of these things Mark spoke about, all of the resources. But before we go, for those people who are just listening and not checking this out on the show notes page, where do you want to just drop those website links auditorily before we go?
Well, tell you what, for the academy, if you send them to your web address is Nicole Holland Show, isn't it?
NicoleHollandShow.com / I think I already set it up actually.
Yeah.
PSA.
Perfect. Yeah, if you go to that, that's the affiliate link for that. So that means you guys will get a better deal from coming through Nicole. And then if you do the same for podcast websites, if you go to NicoleHollandShow.com /podcast websites, use the code Nicole, and that'll get you $20 a month off. I've just made that up.
That's amazing. Thank you.
We'll do that. You are welcome. We'll do that. In fact, tell you what I'll do with that. I'll make it 20%, because then if you sign up on an annual plan, you'll get more. You'll get more of a discount as well. So sign up for that. So if you go to NicoleHollandShow.com /podcast websites, or PW might be easier, Nicole.
I'll do it all. We'll put it all in there. God bless Pretty Link.
Exactly. God bless Pretty Link. And then, just use the code Nicole and you'll get 20% off.
Thank you. I'm writing this down, and hopefully my editor is going to write this down too, because we'll make sure we get all of that. But of course, you can always come over to the website, NicoleHollandShow.com, and look for Mark, and you'll find actually a few interviews, because he's one of my favorite people, and also links to everything. So Mark, thank you very much for being here with us, and we'll look forward to the next interview where we get to learn more about the Mark Asquith, Mr. Mark Asquith.
Yeah, I couldn't get the Mark Asquith Twitter handle, so I had to use Mr. Asquith, which is now a thing. Actually, it ties. Do you know it ties to actually a little joke? Do you know Carol Sanick and Larry? Do you know Larry and Carol?
I do know Carol. I don't know Larry. Yeah.
Next time you see her, just ask her about my NMX badge at 2015. It was serendipitous that I got Mr. Asquith, because I didn't mean to get it, and she always jokes with me, because when I turned up to NMX, like I'm from the UK, aren't I? So on the NMX badges, there was a little field on the input form saying title.
Yeah.
And I just put Mr. Like, apparently it's like host or founder or director or bottle washer. No, I put Mr. So every time I see her, she's like, "Oh, Mr. Asquith," because she just ribbed me for it for 4 years straight. So that's maybe subconsciously where that came from, actually.
That's a trip. Yeah, I don't know where it's at by the time this goes live, but when I got my Twitter account originally, somebody already had Nicole Holland, and so I just nix the name, because NICZ, that's kind of always what my nickname. My nickname was NIC, like just Nick, as I was younger, and then I always just added a Z at the end of it rather than S. So that's what I did for social, like before I really was focused on social and building business through social. So now, at time of recording, the Nicole Holland account has been suspended. So I've been messaging back and forth to Twitter. They haven't done anything yet, but I'm like, I would really like this account. So, and then on the others, and this is why I got thenicoleholland.com, thenicolehollandshow.com, thenicoleholland.show, got all of those, because I actually used to own nicoleholland.com years and years and years ago. And then I didn't know that the internet was going to be this thing. I didn't know that I would be like, we're talking like 20 years ago, probably 15 years ago.
Wow.
And so anyways, some Northwest Mutual, like big insurance company, has it now. So I've just kind of accepted that it's not coming back to me. So the Nicole Holland. So I'm getting that on social.
Those pesky northern people. Yeah, I did that with mine. Do you know, I just realized, Nicole, Zoom popped up and told me there was a problem with our mic. So I think halfway through, I think it actually switched to this microphone. My MacBook's been kicking my ass recently. So I apologize to all the people tuning in for a podcast pro whose mic broke. So yeah, we'll see. Halfway through the interview, you'll probably hear the audio change to this, and it'll probably be significantly better.
It is, actually, it did. It wasn't halfway through. It was pretty early on. I heard it, but
Zoom
you
is
sounded
terrible.
fine.
Good. Well, that's all right. Zoom's been weird.
Wonderful.
It is wonderful. I think it is wonderful. I take that back.
One of my favorite things too.
It really is awesome, but I think it's my computer. I've got a habit. I don't know if I told you. I've got a habit of dropping my computer downstairs. I've done it twice, so I think that's my fault.
Awesome. Well, we could continue this banter, but I'm going to let my listeners off the hook. So thank you so much for being here again, and for creating what you've created, and really being such, not just an influencer in the world of podcasting, but just such an innovator and disruptor and change maker. And like, those are my people too. So I appreciate you, appreciate what you guys are up to.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
For sure.